Hello, I'm Pauline Hoyle. I'm Associate Director of MyScience. I'd like to talk about the difference that CPD can make to both teacher development and, more importantly, to pupil outcomes. The key to any successful CPD is knowing that you are actually going to have an impact on pupils in the classroom. But that will be through what the teacher does differently as a result of that CPD. In the National Science Learning Network, we look at the evaluation of impact by looking clearly about how we embed evaluation within the CPD that we provide. And in particular, we look at how we can embed reflective practices and, to a certain extent, action research methodology within the CPD. Because what that does is it enables the teacher to be an active participant in looking at what they're going to do differently as a result of their CPD and what impact that's having both on their development, on their colleagues' development, and on their pupils' development. Here, we very much use the GUS Key Framework to help us look at the reaction level of teachers or technicians to CPD, the second level of looking at the learning that is happening for the teacher or the technician during the CPD, and then sometime later looking at the change of practice that's happened both for the teacher themselves that's attended the CPD, but also for their colleagues when they've perhaps disseminated some of that learning or found a way of involving their colleagues in doing something different. And then lastly, but most importantly, the impact that's had on pupil outcomes or pupil learning as a result of something that the teacher is doing differently because they've thought during their CPD about changing their practice. To make any professional development experience really effective and embedding in changing your practice, you need to go through a process of thinking about, before you undertake that professional development, what am I going to learn from this experience? So whether you're going on an external piece of CPD or doing something with a colleague in school, what do I expect to get out of this experience? Then, as you are undertaking that process, actually thinking about the learning that you're going through and what, as a result of that, are you going to do differently in your classroom? And then, when you've tried doing something in your classroom, what have I learned? What have my colleagues learned? But more importantly, what are the pupils able to do now that they couldn't do before? So that implies that actually before you start, you have to look at where the pupils are. So if you're going to undergo some professional development, thinking about developing practical work in your classroom more effectively, what are the pupils able to do now before I try and do something? I go and do a new skill or develop a new approach in my classroom. What can they do now? And that's the evaluation of impact. So through the National Science Learning Centre, we embed those processes into something called our Impact Toolkit. And so we provide a series of forms for you to complete to help you think about and reflect on those processes as you're doing it, before you come to your CPD, as you're doing it, and afterwards. So it's not just form filling, it's a really key part of to help you reflect and think about what you're going to do differently as a result of your CPD experience.